So greetings from Pennsylvania once again, and we are still here in the old public cemetery here in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, just west of the state capital of Harrisburg. And up in the distance there, by that flagpole, I see the statue of Molly Pitcher. So that name should sound familiar to you, the name of Molly Pitcher. She's well known in American history during the Revolutionary War for her deeds, or supposed deeds. We'll talk about that. But let's get up to her statue first. Oh yeah, the title of this video, Folklore or History, Fact or Fiction, you decide. All right, so making our way up to her grave and statue. I always remember hearing about her, but I never realized there was quite a bit of controversy as to the accuracy of her story. There she is. Molly Pitcher. They even have a cannon here, which is fitting if you know the story. Cannon restored by the Carlisle Sunrise Rotary. Yeah, Molly Pitcher. Yeah, Molly Pitcher. She goes by a number of different names. Mary McCully, or Mary Hayes, or Mary Ludwig. We'll talk about that in a moment. But born in 1744, died in 1832. Here she is, handing out water to the soldiers. Thus the name Molly Pitcher, because right there's the pitcher that she's using to carry water. During the Battle of Monmouth in New Jersey. And then as the story goes, her husband was killed. Her husband was an artilleryman, manning the artillery. He was killed. And she took up his position, using the ramrod, shoving the charges down into the cannon. And there's another view of the whole site with the cannon, her statue, and the flag in the background there. However, there's a lot of controversy surrounding the actual existence of this legend. Did Molly Pitcher even exist? Is the story even true? I didn't necessarily realize that until I started researching it more. Most modern scholars think that the story is just a myth, that Molly Pitcher never actually really existed. You got the train whistle too. So what are some of the issues surrounding this controversy? One thing is that this fame as being Molly Pitcher wasn't given to her until after her death. In fact, several decades after her death is when she became associated with the tale of Molly Pitcher. And then from the records of the Battle of Monmouth, where this event took place, there is no record of her being there or of that event actually happening during the battle. Oh yeah, because legend says she was actually recognized by George Washington as well. So it's kind of interesting. I know she died in 1832. I think in 1922 she did apply for a military pension as the wife of a veteran, but in the records it has her listed getting the pension as for due to military service given during the war. So that would indicate that maybe her actions were true. It's hard to say sometimes, but there's no records of her during her lifetime of actually being Molly Pitcher. That could be just because of bad record keeping during the war, or other issues like that. Who knows? That's one of the issues around the controversy. Out there she is. There were some other tales written about her too in later years, but that's one of the main things. It's all written about her like after the fact in later years, much later years. There's a story describing her encounter with, when she was manning the cannon, one of the cannonballs went right between her legs and clipped off the lower parts of her petticoat, as I recall. And she was said to remark, if they would just gone a little bit higher, it might have taken out something else. And some people think that was just camp talk, that story was made up for the soldiers, like a kind of a humorous talk, maybe like a slight coarse humor, like you would hear in a junior high locker room. I have that quote written down somewhere. I think it's on my phone, but some people think that's just part of the legend of Molly Pitcher too. And that kind of is what happens with legends. They kind of take on, a story of their own and just grow and grow and grow after the fact. But of course it gets even more confusing. There's another story from the same time period, not from the Battle of Monmouth, but the Battle of Fort Washington, which was up in New York. A woman named Margaret Corbin, who became known as Captain Molly. And a very similar story associated with her. Her husband was manning the cannons, he died, and she took over that that job, I guess you could say. And in the process, her arm got injured and it was useless for the rest of her life. And she was given the name Captain Molly by none other than George Washington once again. And supposedly she was the first woman to receive a lifelong pension for military service. So two very similar stories. Was Captain Molly Margaret Corbin? Is she the real Molly Pitcher, or is this the real Molly Pitcher? Mary Hayes. Very similar stories. And there was yet another woman from this time era. Her name was Deborah Sampson, I believe. She's not associated necessarily with the canon or anything like that, but she was a woman who disguised herself as a man and enlisted in the Revolutionary War, the Continental Army, and wasn't discovered until she got injured and was being examined by a medical doctor, and he realized that she was not a man, that she indeed was a woman. So some people think that the legend or the story of Molly Pitcher is kind of an amalgamation of all these different stories, and then that's where the legend comes from. We do have several little information plaques we'll read. Mary Ludwig, she goes by different names. Mary Hayes, Mary Ludwig. It says Macaulay up there too. That gets kind of confusing. So she married John Hayes in 1769. John Hayes enlisted in December of 1755. He was wounded at the Battle of Monmouth. Mary Ludwig Hayes, sorry it's really windy out here, returned to Carlisle with her wounded husband. A lot of stories say he was killed. The flag's getting in the way there. And after his death she married Sergeant George Macaulay. Okay, that's where the other name comes from. Yeah, Mary Ludwig Hayes, Molly Pitcher, accompanied her husband during his service in the Continental Army and rendered valuable services in the capacity of an Army nurse. By reason of her many acts of kindness, became known throughout the Army from the oft-repeated expression, "Here comes Molly and her pitcher," as Molly Pitcher. At the Battle of Monmouth, June 28, 1778, Sergeant John Hayes was severely wounded, and as he fell to the ground, Molly sprang to the cannon and he had been serving, which cannon had been ordered to the rear, but before the gun could be withdrawn, she had taken her husband's place and rendered such valiant service that the General George Washington, after the battle, thanked her and personally for her bravery and heroic action. Yeah, so as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I never really knew that there was a controversy surrounding the existence of Molly Pitcher. Like I said, some people, one of the main problems they have is that during her lifetime, after the battle, she was never recognized for what she did, but it wasn't until decades after that recognition was given to her. But I don't know if that's a huge reason to doubt the story, because some people, maybe she was kind of a shy person and didn't really want the recognition while she was alive, and it wasn't until afterwards that recognition was given to her. So that's a possibility too. But it is interesting that there's like that one other person, Margaret Corbin, Captain Molly, an extremely very similar story. So you kind of wonder if maybe the two stories got mushed together, like an amalgamation of the two. You never know. We never know. But you can look it up for yourself if you're interested in researching the accuracy of this story. It's kind of interesting. So fact or fiction, folklore or real history, you can decide that for yourself. So what do I believe? To be honest, I'm kind of a sucker for stories like this sometimes. I like legends like this. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be true. I could see how it might be a bit of a, like I said, an amalgamation of some different events that happened. Maybe there's a kernel of truth to it. Maybe like I said, legends tend to grow sometimes, especially after a person dies. But I also don't always like the way modern historians tend to just to throw aside stories like this too. They're so quick to just like, this didn't happen, that didn't happen. And I don't know. I disagree with that sometimes too. But anyway, I'm not 100% convinced either way right now. But anyway, I'll let you decide. Like I said, fact or fiction, folklore, history. All right, you can let me know what you think in the comments, based on what I said in this video, or just like I said, do your own research to come up with your own beliefs about the reality of Molly Pitcher. Let me know in the comments. All right, as always, thanks for coming along, and I'll see you on the next one.